There is always gap appearance and reality. I think there looks here one monk, here one monk, here one monk with hair.
The Tibetan Photo Project got its start in Northern California when monks on a cultural tour made a stop in Mendocino. And it was there that I was introduced to a program for sponsoring monks living in exile in India. When I sent my first letter, I also sent along a disposable camera. And I had no idea what I was going to get back. I had no idea what this was going to take. After about 6 weeks, the first correspondence returned, and this was when I was going to learn that it was going to take a long time for most correspondence to make the full cycle in India. Taking his first photos with a recyclable camera, Jamyang Norbu gave the Tibetan Photo Project its start. Jamyang's personal story is representative of the plight of thousands of Tibetan monks living in exile. Under the watchful eye and heavy-handed influence of the Chinese government and military, he was unable to get either a traditional secular or monastic education inside Tibet. The Chinese had also destroyed all but 13 of 6,000 monasteries that made up much of Tibet's education system. Joining a few young countrymen, he took the treacherous walk over the Himalayas into Nepal and moved onward to the Tibetan colonies in southern India. Now in his 30s, Jamyang is 2/3 of the way through a 20-year program at the Drepung Monastery that will give him the equivalent of a PhD in Tibetan Buddhist philosophy. When he was introduced to his first camera, Jamyang sent us a letter saying he had no experience and the Tibetans had no culture based in photography, leaving him at a loss at what to photograph. There have been thousands of beautiful portfolios, books, exhibits, and films on the Tibetans, but all from the preconceptions of the Western eye. Jamyang's question gave us a clear picture of the mission of the Tibetan Photo Project, and when we wrote back, we provided a few elementary tips about lighting. But regarding the content of his photographs, we asked Jamyang and the monks at Drepung to take pictures of what they felt the West should know about their lives. Not long afterwards, Parade magazine reported to 16 million readers on the Tibetan Photo Project, and they called the works by the monks in exile rewarding.
So the initial reason we brought the Tibetan Photo Project to Duke was to help us formulate the work we were going to do in the Himalayan region over the summer, and also just because of the general appeal of the project, putting the actual recording of Tibetan culture into the hands of the Tibetans in exile is just something that seemed not necessarily novel, but at least unique to the Tibetan situation, and something that this school has an interest in. I mean, we're having a small gathering now. Hopefully this will grow into something bigger in the future, but there's so many different ways that this can help us not only shape our work, but also just teach us about a part of the world that we don't necessarily have access to here in this way.
Well, I think the thing that interests me about the Tibetan Photo Project is, as someone who's interested in both human rights and a creative side, I like to see kind of the fusion of those two things. I'm kind of sick and tired of seeing only the human rights side, and I'm really interested in kind of in taking a creative look, whether it's through fiction, whether it's through photography, whether it's through film, and taking a creative look at these human rights issues, because I think that's really the only way that you're going to reach enough people to actually make a difference. There aren't enough people that are interested in just the pure human rights issues, I think, to really make a change. But if you turn it into turn that that human rights issue through a creative outlet, you can get a lot more done, I feel like, and that's interesting to me.
Well, yeah, and coming from an academic setting here at Duke, it's a very high-powered university, and we constantly have journalism thrown at us, different political literature thrown at us, to just get the creative side of it, the more documentary work at just more of a personal level, especially with the format that you guys have been working in, putting the tools in the hands of the people that you're trying to learn about. It's a particularly special idea to us, so that's why it was so appealing from the beginning, because as Brian said, the human rights work sometimes just gets a little too monotonous to swallow all the time, over and over again. This is much more connecting on a personal level. It's going to affect people like college students who are overwhelmed with information, bombarded with different causes, and we're kind of formulating our worldview here. We're in our 20s. In a place that's full of information and resources, and this is just a really poignant way to look at something. And the appeal of it is that it's completely accurate. It's photography, it's visual, and it's in the hands of the people that we're trying to learn about, not necessarily this anthropologist or journalist going over to look at people and tell us what we should think about them, but having them tell us their own story.
And it allows you to see that when it really comes down to it, we're not that different from the Tibetans, from anyone who's suffering in a human rights problem worldwide. We're just the same, we've just been put in a different situation, and art allows us to do that.